Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Lauren, the film student extraordinaire, and today we're back to talk more IATSE stuff and news about the strike, the aversion, and the tentative agreement. So keep watching.
I was kissing you with my eyes open, but you said keep them closed and be in the moment.
If you've missed the whole IATSE situation, I have a couple videos I will link down below. But basically, the people who work behind the crews on film sets have had enough of atrocious working conditions and have complained and are fighting back against the studios. The studios didn't do anything about that. IATSE, the union, voted to authorize a strike. The strike date was set for the 18th. They reached a tentative agreement, I don't know why I did quotation marks, on the 17th, so there is no strike as of the present when I'm filming this, which is Tuesday night, just in case something happens tomorrow, Wednesday. And this deal has a couple things which we'll talk about, these tentative agreements, but people are not happy about it, and there's some things that are lacking, and I agree. So that is why I'm talking about this. Side note, I know this is a different angle than usual, but my computer literally fused to its case. I got a sleeve for it, but I'm just paranoid right now, so because I'll be referencing certain notes and articles, I just wanted to be able to have it on my desk. Physically right now, yes, this is my computer without its case because the case is bust. I'm going to reference 3 different articles today, and I'm going to note what these articles are just so we can get a sense of who's kind of saying what. The first article that I think provides more of a lens where it's definitely favoring the deal and the studios, I would say, is from the New York Times. And this is called, the title is Hollywood's Behind the Scenes Workers Reach Deal Averting Strike, and then the tentative agreement came hours before a strike deadline and avoids a production shutdown at TV and movie studios already scrambling to make up for time lost in the pandemic. So this is obviously favoring the studios, saying they've already dealt with so much being unable to film during the pandemic. We couldn't do it with a strike. And the industry would suffer for sure. But I don't personally love this language. And it's very positive. It's saying you might say the people behind the cameras have found their voices. And it also says a great way to talk about who's in this union would be, they call it Hollywood's version of blue collar workers. Camera operators, makeup artists, prop makers, set dressers, lighting technicians, editors, script coordinators, hairstylists, cinematographers, writers' assistants, etc. And this is a tentative agreement for a new 3-year contract, because every 3 years they make a contract, and theirs expired technically before, during COVID, but then they extended it because of COVID. There were different things, but now that's why it's all come to a head. Now, the studios, just in case you didn't know, include Disney, NBC Universal, Warner Media, then there's Amazon, Apple, Netflix, etc. Now, the IATSE negotiator agreed to a deal after they called it winning concessions on several fronts. And I will first read what they are, and then I will explain why I think some of these things are problematic. I would also like to say before I continue, in case people stop watching soon, the deal will not be official until the unions vote individually to kind of ratify it in a way, and then everyone will then follow it. And a lot of people are saying they're going to be voting no to this contract. Crews will now receive a minimum of 54 hours of rest on weekends, on par for the first time with actors. Studios were previously not required to give crews weekend rest time, although they were required to pay overtime. Crews will also receive a minimum rest of 10 hours between leaving a set and being required to return, which IATSE had deemed essential to personal health, especially since shoots can routinely run as long as 18 hours. The proposed contract also includes pay increases and a commitment by the companies to fund a $400 million deficit in the IATSE pension and health plan without imposing premiums or increasing the cost of health coverage. Studios will also give crews an extra day off by recognizing Martin Luther King's birthday. Now, this may sound like a great start, a great thing, and it's a start for sure. But let me explain what this means. So, a minimum of 54 hours of rest on weekends. That is nice. But you can still sort of have a Fraturday, which is a Friday running into a Saturday, and then you're still tired, but at least you sort of get this weekend. That is nice. The 10 hours, though, is the thing that's a real killer. A minimum of 10 hours just means that you could still be working crazy days, right? So days are 24 hours. So if you have a 10-hour period in between leaving a set and coming back, you could be working a 14-hour day. And crews, they wanted 10 hours, ideally hour days, or 12-hour maximum, because there's people who are always going to be on set longer, like PAs, transportation crew. So if they have a 14-hour day, they really have a 16-hour day because they have to come an hour early and leave an hour later. So their 10 hours is already down to 8 hours. And that's what they're including going home, eating, showering, seeing family, sleeping, and then getting back and all that stuff again. So 10 hours minimum rest is really not enough. And the fact that this is like, whoa, that just shows how it's insane there wasn't something like that before. And here they're explaining, well, shoots could be 18 hours long. Oh my God. And they have 10 hours and they're supposed to be back for another 18-hour shoot. This is problematic. This is not a saving grace. This is not like the Hail Mary we were looking for. It's not. It's a step in the right direction, but it's like just not there. The pay increase is 3%. It's not in this article, but I believe that's what it was from another article, and maybe it'll say when we get there. That is technically, I think, below inflation, or it's like around inflation. It's not what people wanted. They wanted more than that. I'm happy about the funding the deficit in the pension. I think that's good. And it's nice that they get another holiday. But I don't, that's kind of like a gimmick. I think it sounds really good, but I don't think that means a lot in the grand scheme of things to the studios. And another thing is the IATSE president, which I thought was horrible, like what he said, and he's now gotten a lot of heat for it. We went toe to toe with some of the richest and most powerful entertainment and tech companies in the world. He also called the agreement a Hollywood ending for the union. This is not a Hollywood ending, and I'm going to read a thing that someone else wrote from IATSE in the IATSE stories at IA Stories, which I will also be linking down below. Let me pull that up. I should have prepared, but I forgot to get this ready to go. I believe I saved it. Okay, so this isn't what I was looking for, but it's good. Some basic math. There are 168 hours in a week. We can spend some of the time working, some of it sleeping, and some of it for ourselves. Time with family, friends, hobbies, doctor visits, recovery, etc. A 54-hour weekend plus 10-hour turnaround 4 nights a week comes out to 94 hours for sleep and ourselves. This leaves a 74-hour work week. The contract is for a 74-hour work week. Why would we want that? Then this one says, I will not ratify the deal for 2 primary reasons. Firstly, 14-hour days are unethical. People still have to add their commutes to work and back, so it's probably closer to 15.5-hour day. Where do those hours leave a parent to spend time with their child at the end of the day? The idea of men and women being forced to work these hours whilst media corporations and the elites in our industry grow as wealthy as small countries must end. It's time for them to sacrifice. In California, we can see why no one is happy. The media conglomerates can't force membership to work 14-hour days and then still find home ownership unaffordable. They have no hope for a future there. If the media conglomerates support the politicians who make life unaffordable in California, then they must start paying workers a living wage that includes the dream of home ownership. Either that or the media elites must start supporting politicians who prioritize affordable home ownership with lower classes so that middle-class workers in our industry can thrive. So basically they're saying that they can't have their cake and eat it too, the studios being. I know that wasn't what I came to look for, but those were the 2 most recent posts I saved, and I thought they were still worth sharing. Yeah, so that's everything coming from this article. Then I want to read an article from USA Today. Hollywood workers, and this is finally going to talk a little bit more about kind of what those stories were saying in my personal opinion. Hollywood workers, studios dodge strike with tentative deal. For some, it's not enough. So they called this the 11th hour deal because it was pretty much the 11th hour deal because it came so late in the day. And again, the president said, like, this is a Hollywood ending. Our members stood firm. The workers still must vote to approve it, but the strike has been called off with the tentative deal. In the event that members vote against the deal, negotiations will begin again. The effects of the strike would have been immediate, with crews on long-term productions as well as daily series such as network talk shows walking off their jobs. Shows with short turnarounds like soap operas would have felt immediate effects. So they freaked out, the studios did, because about the fact that there could be a strike, and you heard like horrible stories about them trying to cram extra hours in because they were like, we're gonna shut down, we can't deal with that. And it's like, and why do you think we want to strike, right? It's just really complicated. A lot of people celebrated the news, and especially like in the news, like my parents, where they sent me clips, they just said like strike averted, and it was super positive without really going into details. And maybe if they read the paper, but like super seriously, but like they read a lot of articles in the paper. I'm not trying to hate on my parents here, definitely not, love you guys. But you know, for the general public, it just looks really good. you know, only because I was like, well, wait a second, there's actually more to it. They both were like, oh, wait a second, there is more to it. Hence I'm making this video. So IATSE social media mentions were flooded with frustrated replies from members arguing the deal did not address their major concerns, most notably longer rest periods. Again, that was a big thing. But so Laura Casey, a hairstylist and makeup artist, said, most members I've spoken to aren't happy and will vote against ratification. The statement from IATSE says that the agreement addresses core issues including reasonable rest periods, meal breaks, a living wage for those at the bottom of the pay scale, and significant increases in compensation to be paid by new media companies. The meal break thing is also really complicated because they didn't actually require meal breaks, they just raised the penalty for if you don't have one. That's not the same as a meal break. That's everything from this one. This is kind of like in the middle. It does talk about there are some big things it accomplishes, but I think primarily it talks again like the real issues, the underlying issues were not resolved. And I'm thirsty now. I'm gonna talk about one more article, and I apologize if I'm like a little all over the place. It's pretty late. I waited as long as I could to make this video in case like more news came up. Now this is the one that's like the most in favor for the workers and not for the contract. I wanted to give 3 articles. I couldn't do a ton of research, just didn't have the time, but I still trying to talk about 3 articles that were kind of in different spots, so that way I'm not giving one like totally biased view, and I will be providing all the links down below so you can read them in their entirety. This is from Left Voice. IATSE leaders betray workers with an atrocious tentative agreement, but it's not over yet. In a huge betrayal to the workers, IATSE leadership struck a deal with the bosses to avert a strike that was set to begin on Monday, but the fight isn't over. Now workers should vote no and prepare to strike until all their demands are met. So obviously this article is very much telling you this deal sucks. And I don't know if the deal totally sucks. I'm not happy with it. I hope at least some people vote no so that IATSE can see like, hey, our members are serious about what they want. But I do think we should acknowledge some gains were made. So this is very specific. So 36 hours before the workers were set to walk off, leaders announced they'd reached agreement, and the union bureaucracy is celebrating it as a victory. And it definitely did imply, especially with the Hollywood ending, that this is a like total victory for all their demands, which is obviously not true. And this is a little harsh saying with their semantics, but the facts about the deal are objective. It falls short on every front. There was no reduction in work hours, the pay raise of 3% is lower than the current inflation rate of 5.4%, and there was no movement at all on the question of streaming residuals. Additionally, the workers haven't seen the full agreement yet. They've only been provided highlights. To call this a landmark or to call to break out the cigars is insulting to the thousands of IATSE workers who voted to authorize a strike and who have the right to read the full agreement, discuss, and decide on next steps. Now this is a key thing because they're worried that they may have to be called to vote on this before they can see the full agreement. So IATSE is telling everyone like go to your town halls, ask questions, clarify, discuss. But when you can only see bullet points on something, it's hard to know what you're really agreeing to. And I'm sure we've all been somewhere where we have like, you know, agreed to something without reading any of it, right? Like when you get a new device or you sign up for certain accounts, you just scroll through and click agree. But this is a very serious situation. Like people are not willing to just do that. There's a lot that has to be accomplished, it has to be said, and it's just not as easy as just being like, yeah, we agree because you say we should agree. This is like the really tricky part that I really don't like. I understand that it's just kind of how politics work, but it's upsetting to me. The full membership will not get to vote directly on the contract. Only an electoral college of 13 of the locals who are signatories of the Hollywood-based agreement will be permitted to vote. So this shuts out 23 other locals that voted to strike. And I do agree with the labor movement page here of the Left Voice that says, it is a right of all members of a union to get to read, discuss, and vote on their proposed contract. The thing is, like, I understand that it comes down to, like, there's gonna be differing opinions and someone represents everyone, but the fact that only the, like, locals get to vote instead of all of like only certain ones get to vote in Hollywood instead of all the ones in the area is very upsetting to me because they all have to follow the agreement, and that's basically it's not taxation without representation, but it is something without representation. And I think everyone deserves representation in any facet of their life, especially their job. And on Twitter, people are not happy, too vague, not enough hard parameters. Workers need to hard out after a single shift of 8 to 10 hours max. that this is just a start. Isn't that the deal y'all had before the strike? Not enough. How can this be the best IATSE can do with such a large backing? Huge backing. Like 98% of people voted yes on the strike. There was so much momentum here. So much momentum. Is this winning? Vote no. What is living wage? Thumbs down. Nah, still strike. And then someone was like, where's the provision for not having 18-hour workdays? I don't see it. Do you? The end of this article is very dramatic. It says, blah, blah, da, 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 da. And IATSE workers should see that their leadership's betrayal for exactly what it is. They should see that they are being sold out and refuse to accept it. Their demands were not met. So therefore, the workers should vote no and strike. I do think that the agreement, is not what I would want to have. I think there should be nowhere that it's acceptable to have an 18-hour workday. And yeah, what is a living wage? What does that mean? A living wage where? A living wage for who? There are definitely a lot of things that are not specified, and unfortunately with contracts and money, when it's not specified, places are always going to try to make it cost the least amount of money, go for whatever's cheapest. Well, I guess that's the same thing, I kind of just repeated myself, but that's what they're going to do. And I think the workers of the industry deserve better. There's tons of workers going on strikes right now, or proposing strikes, because people are realizing they're being exploited, and that they need them. The people at the top need the people working beneath them to create their products and to create the movies, right? It doesn't matter if you're a studio executive, if no one's making your movie, then what's your studio producing? Nothing. Then you're out of a job as well. So I think it's just high time people really listen to what these demands are and think about why they're being asked, and if you at the top would like to work that life, live those hours. And if the answer is no, then why are you expecting someone else to do that in your industry when you directly benefit off of them? That's my take. I do think this article, the last one, was a bit, definitely it didn't provide any two sides, which I don't love, but that's why I provided 3 articles, and I would love to hear your thoughts down below. That's the next in the saga. I will keep making videos as we get more updates. And that wraps up this video. If you liked it and you learned something, please give it a thumbs up, comment down below or whatever. And if you're interested in following along the journey of this and my personal journey on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe. I have a film in the works right now, so whoopsie, I mentioned it. Shameless plug. I don't know what that was. Bye.
Okay.